It's a great day to be alive on the Dead Jeff Show. Thank you for listening to us today. Come on in. This is a safe place, Cowboy fans, and much better week than last week. Before we get started, though, I want to say a special thank you to everybody who's been listening and commenting. We appreciate that. Do us a favor, please. If you could go like and subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube, we'd greatly appreciate that. And if you feel so generous to leave us a review, please do so. And that way we know who you are and who's listening out there. So wanted to get that out of the way. So Cowboys, this roller coaster of a season continues. But Nick, you were at the game, correct?
Yeah, that's right, man. It was just an absolute blast. So my dad lives down in San Antonio. It's 74 years old, I think. He's never been to a Cowboys game, so really, really fortunate to be able to bring him up here. Took him with my wife and my daughter, and man, the we got there about an hour early. We walked in right about 2:30, and the energy was just electric. You know, they were doing a lot of pregame stuff with the legends being in the house, with the anniversary of the Hail Mary, and um, you know, I was very, very fortunate to be in a suite. I'm going to put that out there, and we had Babe Laufenberg come by, and man, it was just really a blast.
Wait a minute. So your father, who's 74, goes to his first Cowboy game and he's in a suite? You got him sitting in a suite?
Yeah, so I ruined it, right? So because he can never go again, right? He's never going to be able to go and just general admission it up. But yeah, no, we got him in a suite, and you know, it was just really one of those things, a core memory, because I'm sitting there and we're talking and we're laughing, and my wife and my daughter, who will watch the Cowboys games with me, but it's more out of support for me than anything. They're cackling over every little thing that comes up. Man, it's really just a great time.
Well, I mean, is he a Cowboy fan?
Die hard Cowboy fan.
Okay, so that is special. Now, listen, we talked back in episode 1 about how sports are intertwined with our childhood memories when we're sports fans, and that has to be really cool that you got to experience that and see it through his eyes for the first time. But in a suite's a little high tone, and now you have spoiled him. It's like he's never going to be able to go back and just sit in the seats.
Yeah, I don't expect him to, but yeah, definitely set a high tone. Definitely felt like, you know, like I said before, just really blessed, very fortunate. God's been very good to me. Really, just a lot of opportunity, and to give him that and to watch him. And you said it perfectly, man. To just kind of almost watch the game through him, watching it as he's watching it, looking over, and just the, you know, everything happening, and you know, that long bomb to CD that we'll get into later, watching him jump to his feet and just I mean, you just lose everything in that moment, man. It's just so amazing.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, what that would be like. But, you talked about the legends being on the field, and I don't know if Drew Pearson tried out for the Commanders at wide receiver before the game because they definitely could have used him, but it was really cool and got me a little bit emotional seeing Roger throw the pass to Drew and just really, I think the Cowboys have done a better job of connecting their history lately. So it was really cool to see all the legends out there and to see that moment.
Yeah, and I think, you know, without getting into much of the post game stuff already, but Dak was talking in his post game about talking to Roger before the game started, and just kind of what he's meant to Dak over the course of his career ever since his rookie year, and just listening to him talk. I think exactly what you just said is right. The connection to the legends. I think watching this juggernaut of an offense is really making everyone just so hopeful that if you just get a little bit from the defense, this offense can play with anybody in the league.
Well, you said that word hope again. And so, well, let's get into it a little bit. All right. Let's talk about what was Cowboys 44, Commanders 22. We can get into that. You know, we talked about this season being a roller coaster. We talked about it being a week to week thing as a Cowboys fan. And this is another great example. Now, we do have to set the table correctly. We got our weapons back. We got Turpin. We got CD. We got offensive line help back. I think Booker. And they came in, like I said earlier, with Drew Pearson. Maybe he wanted to try out for the Commanders. They came up a little bit of a mash unit at receiver. So that helped us out. But let's talk about some of your big takeaways from the game.
Yeah, I think I want to start there with the defense, right? Because I think especially for us and me specifically, I've been extremely critical of Eberflus. I've been extremely critical of the defense. You talk about them being down their three top wide receivers, and that's we can't understate that. But here's what I'll say: if you go back and you look at some of the other receivers that have really really hurt the Cowboys this year and what they've done before and after, everyone was really ready to call this defense as bad as it was, no matter who was on the field. So I'm gonna give a little bit of, let's not play both sides of the fence here. I think that's just fair to the defense. And the other thing I'll talk about is the run defense, because this is the 29th ranked run defense in the league. The Cowboys is. Rico Dowdle just absolutely scorched them. And, Washington had a rookie running back come in that, for all the world to see, is the future of this team in terms of running, because the dude looks phenomenal. They traded their running back away because of what they feel like they have in this kid. And yet Dallas absolutely shuts them down. So just want to be fair to the defense. My first takeaway: the offense is phenomenal. Dak's playing amazing. I think all of those things are being talked about so much. If you have a defense that can be somewhere between 16 and 23 in the league, you probably have a chance to make a ton of noise.
Yeah, I think I want to echo what you're saying there. Now, what we said last week was we've got to stop playing so much zone defense, and we've got to look at the personnel we have and make adjustments. And it looks like Schottenheimer got with Eberflus this week, according to what Jerry said, that the head coach was really involved with, helping them make those adjustments. And here's what we'll say: we saw more man, we saw more blitzing, just a little bit more, and we saw a better product. Combined with the fact that Washington's down their top three receivers, it kind of worked in our favor. Now, we will give them credit. They made the adjustments. I think hopefully the plan moving forward is more man, more blitzes, and let this offense go to work. If I have an offense that's going to score 35, 40 points a game, then I can take some risks on defense. Don't play it too safe. And I think maybe moving forward, that's the plan that'll work.
Yeah, I think what you're really looking for, and this reminds me a lot of when Drew Brees was in New Orleans and they had that just extremely opportunistic defense. This was a defense that was just the poster child for bend but don't break. They would give up a ton of yards, but they would force a lot of turnovers, and they would get timely stops. They would blitz on those third and mid, third and intermediate. They were very aggressive. You can convert 4 out of 5 first downs. That's fine. But if I hold you to 3 with that offense I got, I'm winning. You can score 24 to 27. That's okay. There's not a lot of teams in the league where you say my ceiling as a defense is to give up 27. And no, I'm probably still going to be in this thing. So I love what you're saying. Take risks. Be aggressive on third and intermediate and third and long. Go, play some heavy blitz. Go for some of those. You've got great ball hawking DBs that naturally want to play a high risk, high reward. Just make sure you have safeties over the top when you're doing that.
And I think that, again, as a banner day for the offense, I mean, Dak playing incredibly well. Another game where he has 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. You got Pickens still balling. You have CeeDee Lamb back. You got Turpin contributing, and Jake Ferguson. He gets no touchdowns, and all of a sudden, every week he's getting a touchdown.
Yeah, Fergie is on fire right now, right? And he definitely missed Dak not being there. You said something though, and I just want to touch on this because I did the Cardinal thing not to do, and I went to the comment section and I got involved in some conversation, which I love, by the way. That's all in love. It's not going to be personal, but I'm going to be involved just because I love a great sports debate. But I do just want to clear one thing up on the Pickens thing. One of the things that we talked about last week that got a lot of, we'll just call a lot of traction, is the idea of trading George Pickens. The caveat to that, though, was if you are not going to pay him, if I'm Jerry Jones, if I'm McClay, if I'm Steve, if I'm the front office, and I'm saying I'm not going to pay my number 2 receiver somewhere between 25 and 35 million, which is okay if that's what you're saying, then don't lose him for nothing. Don't let him walk away for nothing. The franchise tag that you pointed out for the receivers is going to be somewhere around 28.4. It's the same thing. You're still, if you're going to pay that money, you're going to pay that money. So the take was, if you're not going to pay him, go get something for him as a valuable asset. I personally do not believe we should pay $55 million to the receiver room, all great as they may be.
Well, here's what I'll say. Everyone, when Jerry pivoted off Micah, when, hey, but we got a handshake agreement, Micah said no. I want to start negotiations from that point, and Jerry said nope. Okay, well, the plan changed. So the plan was to sign Micah. Then now the plan, because you didn't like the way the negotiations went, now you're gonna hold or make him play out his contract or trade him. And so then you pivoted to trading him. Well, that tells me you didn't really have a plan. So your plan A was sign Micah, and then it didn't go your way. So plan B was, okay, we're gonna trade him. Now plan B can work out for you, but we don't want that to happen with the Pickens situation. If And I think it's going to be north of 32 million he's going to request. And his agent is Micah's agent, and they don't do discounts. And so happened to be T. Higgins' agent, who he had to change agents so he could stay in Cincinnati because that's what he really wanted to do. But his agent wanted him to go out and get the most money. And so look, we don't want that to happen here. So let's have a plan. If we know we're not going to pay him 32 million per year average value, then we do have a decision to make. Now, look, I would love to pay everybody, and it's fun to watch this offense. It's fun to watch them, but you have the other side of the ball that you're going to have to pay attention to. And so with Pickens, you you know you say don't pay him. I say I would be inclined to pay him if I had solutions and a plan on the defensive side. Now, if you're going to take every draft pick and draft defensively, if you're going to make a trade, and bring somebody in here that's can rush the passer or play linebacker or good safety, then that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like I said, I mean, and just you saying that, I'm not opposed to taking 10 draft picks and spending every single one of them on the defensive side of the ball. I personally think that's a great idea. I mean, it's a volume play, right? If we take 10, especially with our scouting room, we've said they scout well, they find talent. So if I hit on 6 out of 10, well, that's half my defensive starters. That's half my roster, right? And even if some of that is just depth, that's okay. So I don't hate that. I don't hate that. I don't hate going and getting maybe a Javonte Williams type player on the defensive side of the ball, going to find another Jadeveon Clowney who has started slowly every week, is just doing a little bit more. So look, if you can do those things, absolutely. If you have a plan in place and you are thinking you're playing chess, not checkers, then sure, go play George Pickens, because this offense is almost undefendable.
Yeah, and I think when it all works, it's fun to watch. But what we've been told our entire lives, and mine is longer than yours, I'm a little older, is that defense wins championships and playoff games, and offense sells tickets. That's what we've been told. And what we see has been true. I mean, you look at some of the great offenses in the past that haven't won the Super Bowl. And I think that for me, I'm an offensive minded guy. When we started this podcast, I said I'm geared more towards the offense. You gear more towards the defense. So let's focus on that. And for me, the way Dak's playing and Javonte Williams is playing, and don't forget, he's signed a 1-year deal, so he's going to be up next year. And what kind of money is he going to command at this point? And you have some offensive linemen that you're gonna have to make some decisions on. So there's a lot that has to be considered when you say, can I pay 2 wide receivers north of 30 million and a quarterback as much as we're paying Dak?
Yeah, and with that too, you've also got the A-bomb sitting back there in a contract year. Just if you guys haven't been following, that's Brandon Aubrey. He's on an $800,000 number right now, somewhere just north of 800K. I have a feeling that number is going to go up next year. The sooner you can lock him up, the better. You've got a lot of young offensive linemen, and look, it's wonderful that you've adopted, and Schottenheimer has done this as well as anything else he's done. The next man up mentality is alive and well in Dallas for the first time in forever. The problem with that, though, is now you've got depth, and that now is going to slightly raise that floor in the offensive line room, and it should. But like you said, you can't pay everybody.
No, and listen, I know. I mean, they get that's their job is to figure out all of this stuff when it comes to the cap. But fans, I don't know that fans will ever be happy. They just want everyone to stay and pay everybody, and you just have to make decisions. And sometimes, as you weigh out those decisions, um, Jerry pivoted off Micah for whatever reason. But this time, I would wish that they have a plan. Like when you traded for Pickens, and you said, if best case scenario, this works the way it's working now, he's gelling with Dak. Him and Dak are tight. Him and CD, man, let's ball together. There's no dissension, right? So you have to run that scenario. Okay, if we make this trade and it works out as beautifully as we can imagine, then this is where we go. Okay, then this means we can't do these things. Okay, and then the worst case scenario, imagine you just have to play for both scenarios. And what I just don't have confidence in Jerry that this was part of the plan. I think it was part of the plan for this year, but in his real, if he got real honest with us, did he look at this as a long term deal?
Yeah, you know what you sound like to me right now. And this may be a little bit of a stretch in terms of bridging this comparison. Your wrestling booker is coming out in you. A great wrestling booker will have 6 months of, advanced story. If this happens there, and then I'm gonna go here, and you see everything down the road. I think a lot of times in sport, especially with injuries and you don't know how it's gonna work out, you can maybe have an idea, plan A, plan B. I mean, do they realistically think there's enough ball to go around for CD and Javonte and Fergie and Pickens? Maybe they just assume, "Hey, this is a great one-year rental. It'll be okay. It'll give us a little bit of coverage, but it's not gonna be greatest show on turf type offense." And look, without going all the way there, this offense is phenomenal. And so as you start to think about how do I look 4, 5, 6, 7 steps down the road, I think history would dictate that Dallas, even if they intent is to, the plan never seems to follow through with that. So I think you're exactly right. I think if you map this out of best case, worst case scenario, I don't know that anyone in that front office, just based on what's on the table, based on the money, based on everything you can tangibly look at, really thought about this as a best case scenario type situation.
Well, the good news is it's a great problem to have, right? So now we're in the middle of this, and I'll say this: um, I think that you can make it work. I really do. I think you can pay Pickens and get better on defense, but you have to hit on the draft picks, and you do have to find a Javonte Williams type on defense. Now they're going to get some help. We know Overshown's coming back. We know we're going to get some corner help back. But here's the thing, and the soap opera that is the Dallas Cowboys. Now we have Diggs to deal with, the Diggs situation. And I don't know what to make of this. I mean, obviously, since Micah has been traded, Diggs has been in his feelings a little bit about that. And I understand that's your partner. You miss your friend, but and you're coming off an injury, so I get it. But there's a lot of people now that say Diggs isn't going to be around. They're going to try to trade him, or they're going to be, you start getting some of this defensive stuff to come together, and now we have a Diggs issue, or do we?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you have a Diggs issue. I think you have a Diggs issue on everything you just said. And oh, by the way, the play on the field has certainly slipped beyond a point of, we said it early on and you said it a lot. Deron Bland certainly is looking like he's coming back to form from injury. You see that a lot, especially in the NFL. Guys just taking a little while to get their footing back after injury. I don't know that that's what we're seeing with Trey. I don't think he's a guy that looks like he's ramping back up from injury. It looks like he's a guy that's lost a step that, oh, by the way, is having all these other issues that you just mentioned. And he's got a pretty big cap hit at a position that you cannot afford to not have effective players. And quite frankly, if you look around the league, have effective players at very team friendly deals.
Yeah, and I listen. You know, if Diggs and Bland can be who they were, it's going to be fine. But you just don't know what's really behind all this. And I don't want to speculate and I don't want to assume, but I'm just gonna, I heard Jerry talking about after the game, maybe he went a little bit in too much about Diggs' story, how the concussion happened. He didn't say how it happened, but he was almost kind of riding the fence about whether he believed that story or not, and that's just my take on it. But to me, um, I think it may be leading to a bigger issue, and maybe not. Maybe the concussion protocol will be done. He'll be back this week, and he'll be happy because he wants to play more man. He wants to be more aggressive on defense, and you saw some of those adjustments. Maybe that will make Diggs happy.
Yeah, I hope so. Right. I hope that everything you just mentioned is good. Maybe the break here is still just more rest for a guy that's getting, especially from a cornerback standpoint, getting a little bit up there in age. Hopefully, all those things happen. I guess time will tell. I did also want to get your take on from the Washington side of the ball, just briefly, because we spend a little more time with the division opponents. This is a team that was in the NFC title game last year, right? This is a team that if you looked coming into this year, picking up Deebo Samuel, you think, well, man, this team is just a hop, skip, and a jump away from being really, really competitive. They seemingly did nothing to get worse. Another year under Dan Quinn's off defensive schemes. It really looks, especially now that it looks like Jaden might miss a little bit of time. Just want to get your thoughts on where Washington is, and then maybe quickly on Philly and New York. But man, Washington just seems to have fallen pretty hard.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about the Commanders. I keep wanting to call them the Redskins, but the Commanders. Last year they won a lot of one-score games. So they were pulling out games that were really close, right? And Jaden was dynamic and receivers were making plays. They haven't really had Scary Terry this year. So I think that they've been battling the injury bug and there's tape now on Jaden, and there's more and more tape on Jaden and his tendencies and things of that nature. I think again, last year was awesome. I think they're capable of returning to that form once they get healthy. But you do have to be concerned, especially as Commander fans. You saw RG3 light the world on fire, then he got hurt, and then he never returned to form. I don't think that's going to happen with Jaden. Jaden seems calm, cool, and collective. And look, let's be honest. Right before half, they score, make it 20-15. You think maybe this is going to be a game, and then the Cowboys go down and in 11 seconds or whatever it was, and not 11 seconds, was it? No, it was right before the half. They scored again to make it 27-15. I'm thinking about the CD bomb that was 11 seconds. But so you don't know. I think that there's a question mark, right, on that. And the defense was relatively healthy yesterday. So it's not like they're going to get a lot better. I think it's just this is a year-to-year league. And you mentioned Philly and New York. Philly had their best offensive outing and still barely beat the Vikings. And then New York just crumbled. Can you imagine if that happened to Dallas?
The absolute sky, you might get the first hints of just total dissension and riot in the streets had that happen in Dallas. Just real quick on the Washington point, I think you're exactly right. Just hasn't quite looked the same. It's a year-to-year league. The parity is so real. I think for me, in looking at the way that half ended, is a great microcosm of the way that Washington's season so far has gone and the way Dallas's season has gone. They put up a stat in the stadium. I'm sure you guys saw it on the broadcast, but it was Dallas has scored the most points in the last 2 minutes of the first half, and Washington had given up the least points in the last 2 minutes of the first half. So when Dallas gets that ball back with 45 seconds and the first play is a sack, you're thinking that this thing is dead. And it just goes to speak to the mentality that the team has, and more specifically, the way that Washington season, and you've seen it in New York, and Philly obviously had this too over the couple of game stretch. It's just every week, man, this division is so competitive. It's so tough to get wins. Like you said, Philly probably looked the best that they've looked all year, and albeit against a really good Minnesota defense, but still barely get the job done. And I think it just goes to show that you're going to get to well into December and that division will not be decided yet.
Yeah, and I think that gives you hope for Cowboy fans. And here we are riding this roller coaster, 3-3-1. You know, offense playing championship level, defense playing preseason level, but making progress. Now, I guess it just you got to determine that can they make enough progress to get in the playoffs? Because I'm looking at this team like it's 9-7-1, 8-8-1, probably somewhere in there. And we talked about taking care of business in these games where you should win. They didn't do it against the Bears. They didn't do it against the Panthers, but they did do it against the Jets. And they did do it here versus the Commanders, who come in really banged up, and no one really, you know, gave them a huge shot of winning that game with all their wide receivers out. So again, it's 3-3-1, and you still don't know which way this is going to break. Now, you have Denver at Denver, then the Cardinals back here in Dallas. And if you win both of those somehow, you can get the 9 or 10 wins. But if you split them, then we're right here talking about an 8-8, 9-7 season, 9-7-1 season at best.
Yeah, and I think as we kind of look at that going forward, I think the reality is with some of these stretches, I think you've got there's like Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, or some combination of those four in like a 4 or 5 week stretch, meaning you're going to have to put 3 or 4 wins together, hopefully to keep what you're talking about alive, which is 9-7, 8-8. You really, really are hopeful that 10-6-1 is possible for you and that can hopefully get you in. I just don't think 9 wins gets you in the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. But again, it's this hope that keeps us lured in to go, oh, well, they got a shot at the playoffs. I guess until you're mathematically eliminated, you have a chance. But here's again, offense playing out of this world. Dak playing at an MVP level, but there's no MVP going to be given to him on an 8-8-1, 9-7-1, maybe not even a 10-6-1 season if you don't get into the playoffs, right? And I know it's a regular season award, and Dak has been great in the regular season, and Dak has been phenomenal against the division, especially at home. And this has just kind of furthered that case. But at the same time, guys, it's he's not going to win the MVP if they're a 500 team.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And just to kind of put a little thought into that, last year, Joe Burrow just set the world on fire in terms of what he was doing on a really bad team that didn't make the playoffs. Um, and I think he was fifth or sixth in the MVP voting, maybe fourth. But for the kind of season that he had, if they just make the playoff, he's probably not finishing any worse than one or two, or I'm sorry, or second. So you're exactly right. At the end of the day, Dak can be on a record-breaking pace all year long, and I'm sure a lot of records will fall for him. But it's not going to mean anything if they don't get into the tournament. At the very least.
Yeah, and I think that's where we all land with Dak, playing phenomenal. Like I said, this Dak, he's been decisive. He's been, you know, back to his fleet of foot status when he was yeah, a younger player. But he did show some signs early on in this game of some uncertainty, but he balanced it out and played finished up playing great. He's not making the big mistakes, but he is taking more risks. And that throw to Pickens down the sideline, or he had two of them, but that one, I don't think you could go down there and hand it to him any better. And so yes, playing incredible. CD, Pickens, Ferguson, Javante, it all looks threatening. But again, we're going to go as far as our defense takes us. And if we can get somewhere to the middle of the league, then maybe we can get playoffs, playoff talk going again. But let's see how the next 4 games go.
Yeah, I think it's a great final thought there on Cowboys, Commanders. I wanted to say Redskins too. You got me in the Redskins state of mind. Here's what I'll say on the defensive side of the ball. I think as long as Eberflus can continue to be somewhat flexible with the scheme, if he can allow these guys to be in positions to be successful. I think the roster was built a very specific way that probably doesn't fit his natural scheme. But what you said earlier, I think, is my big takeaway. Be a little more aggressive, try and create some turnovers, put your offense in a position to where, again, 24, I'm going to say this for the rest of the season. Defense, you hold them to 24, and we're going to win way more games than we're going to lose. Every time we give up more than 24 versus under 24, let's just go back and see what the record is when this thing's all said and done, because I have a really good feeling that we'll be way better off for it that way.
Yeah, I agree. And next coming up, we have Denver at Denver, and they have one of the best defenses in the league, although yesterday it looked a little sus. But it'll be a good test to see our offense go up against that defense and how our defense plays against that offense. It seems like Bo Nix waits till the fourth quarter to do anything. And what a fantastic fourth quarter that was yesterday for Denver. But here's what I want to see. They struggled against the Jets. The Broncos did, scoring, and then they struggled for 3 quarters against the Giants, and then it was unlocked. So it's a good matchup for next week. Denver at Denver. We play the Broncos at Denver, and let's see what happens. Can our offense put 30 points on them, and can our defense hold them to less than 30?
Yeah, I think it's a great litmus test. Almost exactly where you want it. 2 weeks out from the bye. I think that pass rush that Denver has is a little scary. Dallas's offensive line has been great. They only gave up 1 sack yesterday. Dan Quinn loves to get after the quarterback, so that was really a great kind of just continue to push forward there. But I will say going into it, I'm not worried about the offense. I really feel like Dallas's offense is going to give you less the turnovers. That's always the caveat. But I think Dallas is going to give you 24 to 27. It's about the defense. Can the defense hold Bo Nix and that offense to 17 to 24 and give you a shot late in that game?
I agree. Well, we can move on. Cowboys took care of business, did what they were supposed to do once we knew who wasn't going to play for Washington. Cowboys 44, Commanders 22. And now we're on to Denver, and we'll see, like we said, week to week, we'll see what next week brings. But let's talk about now who are the best teams in the NFL. We don't necessarily have to power rank the teams, but man, this year it's pretty wide open. Like when you look at the teams, it's the Chiefs looked really good yesterday, but they're 4-3, right? And then you have, of course, Tampa Bay and Detroit playing tonight, and of course the winner of that game, everyone wants to crown as the front runner. But man, who do you think the best team in the NFL is right now?
Yeah, for me, it's probably one of the 2 teams playing tonight. Honestly, I think this is a phenomenal game. Now, I will say a little bit of a quill on the overall meaning for it, just because Tampa's down all 3, just a la Washington. They're down all of their receivers, so no Godwin, no Mbuka, no Evans.
You sure Evans and Abuka aren't playing tonight?
That's what I just read this morning.
Okay, so Abuka's questionable for tonight, and Evans is out.
Evans is out. Godwin is out. Abuka is questionable, but the article I read this morning was that he is very unlikely to go.
And the game is at Detroit, so that already it puts them behind the 8 ball a little bit there. And the way Detroit's coming on, it seems like Detroit should take care of business tonight.
Yeah, it's Detroit -7 is the spread. So Detroit is a 7-point home favorite.
Is that a Knicks pick?
No, it's not, because I don't like picking when teams have. I always feel, especially a team like Tampa with Bowles and with Baker, them having so many guys out almost feels like a trap for the spread, where for all the world to see, Detroit should cover and should cover going away. It just feels like this is one of those games where Tampa keeps it close. I do think Detroit gets the win, but
So is Detroit the best team in the NFL?
Yeah, I really think that they are. But I will also say, and everyone deals with adversity. It's the NFL. I'm certain that people are hurt. There's a big difference between injured and hurt. So I don't want it to come off like Detroit hasn't dealt with any adversity. But if you just look at the way their season has lined up so far, it just feels like they have had less to deal with in that realm. And so, a lot of times it is a war of attrition. Team that can make it through with the most players still standing at the end is going to have that large leg up. Right now, for me, it would be Detroit in the NFC, and I really love what New England's doing in the AFC. I'm not saying I think they're the best in the AFC, but man, Drake May looks amazing, and that just the way that team, especially defensively, is playing, God, they're a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and I mean, I tell you who doesn't seem to be getting a lot of love is the Colts. I don't think anybody trusts the Colts, but man, they look impressive. Jonathan Taylor, Danny Dimes, we know, is really having a breakout season there. But to me, the Chiefs have been the team that have dealt with all those injuries already, and now all their people are back, and it looks so much better. But you have Pittsburgh in the AFC, you have Buffalo in the AFC, and they're sort of Jekyll and Hyde, and I think they're a lot like, well, their defense is better than the Cowboys, but that's gonna decide how far they go. To me, I think we're looking at Detroit, Tampa Bay, the Chiefs, Philly, the Colts. Those are all sort of there, and then you got these fringe teams like, what are the Seahawks going to be? They look pretty impressive so far. So again, it's Green Bay. We haven't mentioned Green Bay. So in the NFC, it's Detroit, Tampa, Philly, Green Bay. Those teams. And in the AFC, you have what we've talked about. And I don't know that I'm buying into New England just yet. But Vrabel's a great coach, and he will get them motivated and fired up. But you certainly have people thinking it's Buffalo, the Colts, and it's wide open in the AFC at this point. But I wouldn't count the Chiefs out for sure.
So with that being said, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I'm gonna give you mine, and then let's just see every few weeks what this looks like. But right now, if you made me choose, give me. And I said this I think 2 weeks ago. It hasn't changed. I'm still gonna go Detroit Buffalo as the Super Bowl favorites for me right now going into the Monday night games in Week 8.
Okay, for me, I would agree with Detroit. Um, I think they're the best team with the eye test, and I think Tampa is not too far behind. And then then you have Philly and Green Bay right there. But Detroit, I would say, would be the best team right now. In the AFC, I think it's the Chiefs, man. That's the eye test. The eyes, you saw it. You see Mahomes coming to life. And I've not been a Chiefs guy, but now you got Rashee Rice going crazy. You got Worthy. How are they gonna, they're gonna leave Kelsey open now. The Chiefs offense is almost as prolific as Dallas if they get some sort of run game, right? And that's the thing that man, it's they can they're the champs. And I'm sorry, Philly, but I think in the AFC they're the ones that you say are the team to beat. Getting all their weapons back at the right time. Philly looks a little wobbly, but they always do at some points in the year. But they could be right there too. But I'll say Detroit in the NFC and the Chiefs in the AFC.
All right, 2 points real quick because I don't want anyone coming for us. He's saying they're the champs of the ASC.
Yes.
We know Philly won the Super Bowl, so I can already see it coming. The other thing is, yeah, the other thing is, it's impossible for me to not hear you talking about the eyes and not think Scarface.
Okay.
It's the eyes, Chico. They never
I
lie.
gotta be honest. I've never seen Scarface. Is that an ender? I've never seen Scarface. I mean, I've heard all the lines quoted. I mean, I've seen all the clips, but I've never seen the movie all the way straight through.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to upload this, Maestro, just because I'm curious as to how much. I mean, there's kids that were probably born 40 years after you that have probably memorized that movie. Just so you know.
Well, I've seen The Godfather.
We're not going to get into a Godfather versus Scarface conversation because then we got a whole nother problem on our hands.
Goodfellas.
Same, you're making it worse.
Gangs of New York, Sopranos. I've seen those things, but I've never seen Scarface all the way through, and
So you
that's crazy to me.
yeah, it is because you're really talking about the one that set the table for all the other ones that you've seen.
Yeah, but, you know, I did like Al Pacino, on Jack and Jill. That was pretty funny.
Oh, no. We're off the rails.
Now look, I know that movie was not great, but that was funny that Al Pacino was in that movie, but it's a Adam Sandler movie. But what are we talking about, man? You you don't even really watch the Star Wars movies. So you wanna come at me for Scarface, but we need to get you hip on the old school Star Wars movies.
I know who Chewbacca is.
That's because, well, he could be your daddy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a great segue on from power rankings to let's
Well,
get into.
wait. That wasn't really power rankings. It's who we thought the best team in the NFL is right now.
I mean, it's a pseudo power. How about a pseudo power ranking? How does
Yeah,
that?
but, you know, those come with, you know, connotations, and people get upset about, "Well,
Yeah.
my team's number 4, your team." No, it's just Detroit in the NFC, we feel like's the best team, and we disagree on the AFC, but power rankings if you must.
Yeah. Got to call it something. Got to have a title. Maestro's got Chiefs Bucks.
Okay, Tampa Bay for Luke and the Chiefs. So we have an agreement.
Little alignment there. Yeah.
And we have an agreement.
Yeah.
But you two don't seem to be agreeing at all. You and the Maestro.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
See how it goes. Get a lot of football left to be played.
All right. So coming up next is my favorite segment because it's What's Killing Jeff. So let's get right into that. I know we got a theme song that may have just played. I don't know in post edit when it plays, if it's playing now or if it already played. But what's killing Jeff this week? Now, a couple things. I have a Great Dane. Now, we did have 2 Great Danes, and we bought them within a few weeks of each other. And those of you who love dogs and love big dogs know that Great Danes don't know that they're big dogs. And so when the Maestro moved out and got married, he took one Great Dane with him. And we have the other Great Dane who has become, you know, codependent on our family. So here's the thing about Great Danes. The amount of slobber that they produce in a short period of time is unreal. It's unreal. And I got to say this, it's like everything in our house, from my clothes to my furniture to the walls, has slobber slings everywhere. Now, of course, we clean them up, but it's like every wall's been touched. Every part of my body has been touched by slobber. And it's a real lovable dog, and it's a big dog. But what's killing me is the amount of slobber that has been on things in my house.
So I think the obvious question here is how do you remedy the surplus of slobber issue you got going on?
Well, let's be clear. I don't have a slobber issue. My Great Dane has a slobber issue. So here's what you do. When they get a drink of water, you have to wipe them off with a towel. Now, we tried the internet thing where you teach them to wipe their own face off, like put a sponge there and have them. No, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for us anyway. And so she's slobber, and then you think you have it all off, and then here comes drool just dripping down, and you're like, what in the world? And so to me, what's killing me is, look, we had our house painted not too long ago, but they had to clean some of the slobber off. She eats in the laundry room. And so when she gets done eating, and they do the Scooby-Doo thing where they shake their head, and that's a real thing, by the way. Scooby-Doo is a Great Dane, and my dog, actually, you can hear that noise, and then it flies everywhere. The worst part is when it flies and hits you in the face. That has happened in this house.
Yeah. So first of all, we need to get some there's the old video or pictures that didn't happen, because that's hilarious. I can't imagine what that feels and looks like. Is there not like the doggy marijuana? I've heard that doesn't that do anything? Or are we not trying to get Nova cooked up here?
Well, you gave away my dog's name, so I don't want people coming for me, but Nova is her name, right? And here's what I'll say about that. I don't know about doggy marijuana, Nick. Maybe you can educate me on that. But here's what I'll say is Great Danes don't live very long, and she's currently 5, and they live somewhere, around 8 to 10 years. And so, I don't know, maybe that medical doggy marijuana you're talking about will extend her life. I don't know, but I don't think it will help with slobber.
I just assumed, marijuana, chill, relax, take it easy. It seems counterintuitive to slobber, but maybe it makes it worse. Who knows? I have no idea.
Well, yeah, you sound like you have no idea, honestly, because the slobber problem comes when they drink or they eat. It's not all the time. It's not like a bulldog where they're just constantly slobbering. But here's the thing. I get on to my daughter because I have to go behind the dog and clean the walls or clean up the area, and I got wood floors. And I don't like the dog dripping water all over the wood floors because you'll get spots on the wood that's starting to, hey man, this is starting to buckle a little bit over here. This dog is just sitting there dripping. And it's funny because here's the thing. There'll be a stare down at my house. It'll be like, okay, Nova's drinking. Who's gonna get up and wash her face? And we wait each other out to see who's gonna do it. And it's kind of funny. I think we've got it down to a science now. But the slobber is just. I heard my wife get upset because she came in from church, and the first thing our dog Nova did was come right up and put her mouth, her nose on her, and got slobber all over her clothes. And that's what they do. They're lovable dogs. I love my Great Dane. They just want to be up close and personal. But the slobber is killing me. It's just killing me. And that, my friends, is what's killing Jeff for week 2. All right, here we go. Now it's time for Nick's picks. Maestro? Well, I thought I'll get the theme song timing down. I guess when I say Maestro, that means that's when you play it. So, how did Nick's picks do for last week, Nick?
Yeah, we did pretty good. We went 2-2 last week. But here's the thing. If we bet the lines and you bet the odds, you should have been slightly over in money. I'm not saying that I bet this way, but if I bet $5 a game and I do evenly $5 a game, because one of the picks was Indy over the Chargers and Indy was the dog, those odds were significantly better than the other 3 bets that we took. So going 2-2 and making money on any given week, we will always take. I will be fair to myself, and that Jacksonville take was horrendous. The Rams went in and just absolutely did whatever they wanted with them. I think that is just quintessential Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, but.
Well, just don't ask me what the odds are that my Great Dane is slobbered on your chair or your microphone, because those might be high odds.
That smells like the odds would be pretty good on that. I'm joking. So, okay. So 2-2 in week 1, or excuse me, 2-2 going into week 7. Week 8, I've got 4 more picks. We're going to go Philly versus the New York Giants, and we're going to take the over 43.5.
Over? Okay.
Yeah, so we're not taking the spread. We're not taking the money line. We're going on the over. The over as of recording was 43.5. Jackson Dart has been at or over 40 in all games that he's played. If he's missed it, he's missed 40 by just a point or 2.
You mean both teams together?
Both teams, right. For those of you that don't know, the over-under is if you total up all scores at the end of the game, that's the over. So the over for this game is 43.5.
Well, you said Jackson Dart's over 40, so I just wanted to clarify.
Right. So the games that the Giants have played where Jackson Dart has been the starting quarterback, the over for those games, the total for those games have been right at 40. Now, of course, Philly and New York just played 2 weeks ago. 34-17 was the final there. That is significantly over 43.5. Now, anyone that knows division football knows round 2 is typically more of a little bit of a dogfight than round 1 was. However, you've got 2 offenses that are clicking on every level. And Philly has only not hit 40 twice this season. in their totals. So I like Philly and New York over 43.5, and there's a high confidence there.
Okay, what's that? Is that $20 confidence, $100 confidence?
No, no,
Bet the
no.
house.
Let's go 50% bankroll confidence. So, if you know your bankroll, if you've got $100, you're probably willing to put 20 on the line this week. Let's go 50% of that. So, if $100 bankroll, let's go $10 on New York, New York and Philly going over. Next, we got Minnesota and the Chargers. Minnesota, a 2.5-point dog. I like Minnesota to cover there. Their defense is one of the best third down conversion defenses in the league. And the Chargers offense, especially since Hampton has been out, is really, really struggling to move the chains. And they're really struggling to stay ahead of script. You're finding a lot of third and intermediates and third and longs. So I think Minnesota keeps this game very close. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota just wins, but I like the 2.5, plus 2.5 for Minnesota. You've got Chicago +7 versus Baltimore. Now, this is Baltimore at home with Lamar coming back, coming off of a bye. Derrick Henry's poised to have a big game. There is everything about this game that makes you go Baltimore, take the points. Except for that, Chicago's 4-2 against the spread in these scenarios, and Baltimore's 1-5 against the spread in these scenarios. So I think one of the things that you'll see is Baltimore's defense continuing to give up big plays. Caleb Williams is a guy that likes to throw the ball down the field. He takes big shots. He holds the ball maybe a little longer than he should, but unlike Justin Fields, he will convert on those every so often. So I think what you'll find is probably Baltimore getting out to an early lead, and then the defense, because of the way the game script will go, giving up some points late. And I think a touchdown is just far too much for the way these two teams play.
I don't know about that one. I feel like there's the wrath of the Raven coming, and Lamar is and Derrick Henry. They've been chomping at the bit to get back out there because they want to turn around their season. So I might be against you on that one, but again, I don't bet, so I'm not the expert, but I would lean the other way, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, we'll put a little pin in that one and see how that one goes. And then the last one here, the upset. We want to give you one upset every single week. I will say this week was tough. There's a lot of, there will certainly be upsets, but if you just look at the spreads and the odds, it's a difficult one to kind of to sift through. So where I landed is the New York Jets are plus 203 against the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Jets are the underdog to the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe Justin Fields gets benched. I think you get a Tyrod Taylor starting quarterback, New York Jets.
He did get benched last game.
He did get benched last game, and the head coach was very non-committal about who will be the Week 8 starter. I do think it'll be Tyrod Taylor. And I think with the way the Cincinnati defense has played, is very, very, they're giving up like 400 yards a game. And I think Tyrod is one of those quarterbacks that is always going to take what the defense gives him. Unlike Justin Fields, who holds and tries to create, Tyrod is very much a guy that just takes what's given to him. You get Garrett Wilson back. Brees has looked phenomenal. And the rookie tight end, Mason. Taylor. Taylor Mason.
I don't know. Which
Mason
one?
Taylor?
You're
Taylor
telling me.
Mason. This is the old...
Which one came first, the chicken or the egg? The Mason or the Taylor? Which comes first?
I think it's Taylor Mason, but we'll find out. I don't like any of this.
Well,
we're going to have to cut all of
no,
this.
we're not cutting that. We're going to leave that in because what came first, the Taylor or the Mason? That's funny.
You know, the worst thing is he's on my fantasy team. I've got the guy on my fantasy team.
Maestro, is it Taylor Mason? Is it Mason Taylor? Okay, Mason Taylor.
Okay, so I had it right. All right, so we'll get back on track here. But yeah, I do think the Jets go into Cincinnati, and I think that is a great value bet. I have a optimistically cautious bet there. I'd probably do a 5, probably about a 20 spot on that.
Okay, but what about Flacco? You don't put any of your hopes and dreams into Joe Flacco and what he brings to the table with the Bengals, and man, he lit it up last game. You don't think he can do that to the Jets?
No, I think Joe Flacco is someone at this point that gets real high for the great games. Green Bay Packers, Pittsburgh Steelers. He gets real up for these, marquee matchups, and then kind of just feels like he fades away. He's very much a quarterback that seems like he's playing to the level of his competition.
Okay, so that's it. That's Nick's picks. Now look, wager responsibly. This is for entertainment purposes only. Can't hold Nick responsible if you don't win, and you can't. Well, he might take a share if you do win. But anyway, that's Nick's picks. Okay, listen, I'm really excited about our NBA preview. Now, we've teased this for a couple weeks. It starts tomorrow night. And of course, we have the Spurs versus Mavericks on Wednesday night. And earlier, you were already making excuses about that game. But we'd like to do a little, let's start with a little team preview. I'll let you go first. As far as the teams go, but you were making excuses earlier about your chances in this game with a couple of guys possibly being out for your team.
No, I still like the Spurs easily in this game, even with De'Aaron Fox and Jeremy Sohan out. I knew Fox was missing. I didn't realize that Sohan wasn't going to be playing. So that I don't love that, but I still like the Spurs to win this game.
Well, you would. Okay, listen. So look, every pundit out there, it seems to be in the Western Conference. There's three tiers. You've got the Nuggets and the Thunder in tier 1. And then tier 2 consists of, like the Lakers, the Rockets are in that tier, and let me find it here. And I'm vamping here. Okay, I got it. And then you got the Clippers, Spurs, Mavericks, Grizzly in tier 3. But tier 2 is Timberwolves, Rockets, Lakers, and Warriors. And I think for the most part I agree with that. But here's what I'll say about the Mavericks. I want to get into the Mavericks team preview. We know what it is about these Mavericks. Now Vegas has them at like 40, 41 wins is the over under. And it's all about health. Now let's talk about, we've moved on from the Luka trade. We're out of that shadow hopefully this year. But what it comes down to is the health of the team. Can our big guys stay healthy? And can Kyrie come back sooner rather than later so that we can um, stay in contention? But I think it's interesting that the Spurs and the Mavericks are in the same tier and really only separated by a couple of games. I think the Spurs over under is like 44, 43 or something like that. So I think it's interesting. We know what the biggest thing for the Mavericks is. Can we stay healthy and can we tread water with Kyrie out, with D'Lo in there, with maybe Cooper Flag running point. But the real excitement for this season is Cooper Flag. And so far, he has done nothing but raise that level of excitement for us Maverick fans because he's been phenomenal in the preseason.
Yeah, I'll say from the outsider looking in, the dude looks amazing. I mean, everything, they've had him running point. He's kind of that point forward. Just everything that he's got seems to be the complete package, and his defensive mentality, especially on ball. Like, you hear the greats talk about you can't teach that. You can teach technique. You can teach how to be a little bit better, shuffle and hands and all that kind of good stuff. But ultimately, and I've heard, obviously Greg Popovich with the Spurs for a long time, defense is about attitude. And boy, do y'all have one in Cooper Flag, just in terms of the dude is just a dog, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I know that they have visions of him also running some point this year, and I'm not sure I'm in love with that. I mean, he's got handles, but I don't know that I love the point forward deal for him. But in spots, yes. But man, I'm really excited about this team because if you think about the way it's constructed, I know some people don't think it's going to gel very well, but I think if you look at it, you got Gafford and Lively that are interchangeable. And you got AD, you got PJ Washington, and Najee Marshall that are interchangeable. They're similar type players. I'm probably going to get flack for this, but you got Klay Thompson, who looks to be back to old form, and you cut his hair. Maybe that's the opposite of Samson, um, but Max Christie plays similarly to Klay Thompson.
I'm not going to talk about the Megan Thee Stallion effect on Klay Thompson.
No, No, I didn't want to talk about that because I'm not a fan of her music, but what he does in his personal time is his business. Okay, but here's what I'll say. I think Clay's been working hard, and he knows what people are saying. They're expecting a drop off from him. But I like what Max Christie brings to the table. So you've kind of got your main roles and backups. You got some redundancy there that you don't lose a lot when you drop off. This team is deep. And we talk about our key additions. They're really it's D'Lo and it's Cooper Flag that are the main additions to this team. And of course, we're all waiting for Kyrie to come back. But for me, we have kind of transformed into a more defensive minded team. But this team can score too. And I think people are underestimating this team gelling together. They seem to like each other. I know that there's been some talk of AD looking a little puffy this season. Maybe he's taken the place of Luca, but I as far as the weight thing, but I really think that this team has a chance to really over deliver.
Yeah, so let's stay there for a second. When you're talking about over delivering, and I think you nailed it. The Vegas line for the Mavericks is 40.5 wins. That was MGM, and the Spurs line was 43.5. You said 43 or 44. You got exactly right, 43.5. If you look at historically, that puts you probably right both in the play-in 9, 10 seed, somewhere right in there. So when you're talking about over delivering, I'm just curious from a Mavericks perspective, you'll hear a lot, what is a successful season look like? So what does that look like? This is a team that was in the finals not too long ago. This is a team that's made multiple Western Conference finals. So what does a successful Maverick season look like?
Well, I think to me, anytime that you're in the tournament, that's a success. Now, a lot of things have to go right for them to get there. I mean, the West is stacked. There's a lot of. I talked about those three tiers, but you could move some of those up and down, real easily. One injury or whatever, and the Rockets are coming along. So you just don't know. Um, Here's what I'll say: successful for me is they make the playoffs, and I don't really like the play in, but for me, it's if they make the playoffs, and I think they have the ability to do that. I think if you ask me to give you my biggest concerns, it's the health of the team, which is on everybody's mind. It's what is D'Lo going to do? Is he gonna bring the team together? And is he going to facilitate, or is he going to throw up some goofy shots every now and then without passing the ball? Are they gonna be cohesive on offense and sort of? But I think this team's going to get out and run. I think they're gonna Kid wants to get buckets early in the shot clock and often. So I think number one concern would be the health of the team in Kyrie's absence. How we're going to play. Number two would be Kyrie's absence. How we're going to play from the point guard position, and can we get cohesiveness on our offense?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think playoffs, especially for a team where you're, coming into the season, your best player is injured. Theoretically, your second best player, like you said, maybe a little puffy. I love that word. And then, the heir apparent, the guy that you think should lead your franchise for the next 12 to 15 years is a rookie. And, there's not a lot of rookies in the history of the league that come in and really helps wins and losses, right? They can have great statistical seasons. He can have a great impact on the game. But to come in as a rookie, especially the number one overall draft pick, albeit on a very talented roster, but still, I think playoffs is a great way of measuring success. I personally think the Mavericks are a playoff team, and I think they might even be a 7-6 seed. And that's more speaking to teams like the Clippers and the Warriors being in that middle tier. I don't like having to rely on Kawhi Leonard and Bradley Beal with the Clippers. That would make me nervous. And then with the Warriors, man, they're just, it's been a long run for them. So I think that's always something.
People are high on the Warriors right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, anytime you have Steph, I understand. I really do. But I just think it's something, and not that the Warriors won't make the playoffs or at least won't be competitive. I just think if you start taking wins away from some of these teams in the middle, and it's like, where do those wins go? I think Dallas is a prime spot for them. So I actually like Dallas to make the playoffs.
Well, and here's what I say about the strengths of the team. I think our front court, um, dominance and the versatility of our front court. You got a list of players that you can interchange there, and I think obviously the weakness would be the backcourt. What are we going to get from the backcourt? But I mean, this is this projected starting lineup for the Mavericks. You got D'Angelo Russell, Klay Thompson, Cooper Flag, Anthony Davis at the 4, and either Lively or Gafford at the 5. And that's a pretty stout starting lineup. Defensively, I don't see a giant weakness there. Again, it's about cohesiveness. Can they gel? Can they come together? The people that are picking the under on the 40 wins are the ones that think, hey, might be a train wreck. I just don't feel that so far, and I feel like they're going to come together and overproduce. And listen, you still have Max Christie, Najee Marshall, and guys coming up. PJ Washington, not in the starting lineup, that can come off the bench. I mean, think about Cooper Flag, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. That's a nice rotation there at small forward and some power forward for Anthony Davis. But I just really like our front court. I like, obviously, the infusion of the rookie, I think, is going to be fantastic this year. And listen, I know Cooper Flag had a lot of hype, and I know there's a lot of talk about the lottery being payback for the Mavericks for trading Luka. And if it is, thank you very much, NBA. Because I think that means the rebuild here is more of a retool. If we can get Davis to play a full season and we get Kyrie back healthy, I really feel like we will do well enough until he gets back. And then when he gets back, we'll have that playoff push. And who knows what could happen. But man, this year is like the stepping stone for next year for the Mavericks. And so for me, that's what I'm most excited about, is watching this team, if it gels together or not. Our defense is much better. Our offense is slightly worse. And I call it the D'Lo factor. Is he going to show up and do what he's supposed to? Or is he going to, go awry every now and then? And so for me, that's my Mavericks preview. I think they'll end up somewhere just slightly above 500. I don't think they get to 50 wins, but they get close. So I'm not, quick with math, but if you play 82 games and you win like 47 or 48, that puts you at like 45 or 44 losses. So I'll go 48 and 44. Am I at 82 there? No, that's 92, isn't it? I don't know.
48 and 44 is 92, yes.
Yeah, so that's 10 too many. So I would say about 48 and 34 or 47 and 35. We got the math right there.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but that's my prediction.
Yeah, okay. So I guess that would mean we're on to the Spurs now.
And that concludes our time here on our NBA preview.
So here's what
you okay over there?
You have to cut it. Yeah, well, here's the other thing, though. I also need my charger because this is going to die.
That was hilarious. Okay, so that was it. See, we started talking about the Spurs and everything breaks down.
Everything breaks down, yeah.
Computer's dying. The microphone's unmuted. So that concludes our NBA preview, everybody. Go Mavs. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened right there, but you start talking about the Spurs and the whole thing crashes. The whole podcast crashes. We had the camera shut down because nobody wants to hear about the Spurs, it sounds like.
Or is Wemby's defense just that amazing that no matter what happens, when you start talking about Area 51 and the San Antonio Spurs, everything just stops. It doesn't work anymore.
I think he weighs 51 pounds. That's what you need to be concerned about with Wemby.
Well, at some point we'll get into the Spurs preview here. No, but here it is. Really, you talked about the Mavericks. Your biggest concerns for them. I think going into the season, there's a lot of optimism with the Spurs. I think the biggest concern, for me personally, I think a lot of people would say the same thing, is you've got a lot of guards that need minutes, and not sure if people know this or not, but there's a finite number of minutes available per game. Dylan Harper has looked phenomenal. His decision making, his ability to create, penetrate, and dish, finishing at the rim has looked great. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is hurt to start the season, at least a little bit, but it won't be a long injury, so he'll be back sooner than later. The reigning Rookie of the Year, Steph Castle, is going to demand a lot of minutes, especially early in his career. He needs time. Devin Vassell is somebody that has basically been a 20-point a game scorer in the NBA. You've got other guys coming up. Julian Champagny, basically your best 3-point shooter on the team. He's got to have minutes on the court. So that's a lot of guys that require time. And I think that for me is the biggest concern going into the season, is from a rotation standpoint and X's and O standpoint. How are you making sure that all these guys get time? How are you manipulating, minutes? Because on the other side of the ball is a strong sense of defensive prowess that you want to have. It's one of the things that the Spurs can hang their hats on. So offense versus defense. And then last and certainly not least is a 3-point shooting. I talked about Champagny. He's a great 3-point shooter, but beyond him, there's not a lot of consistent 3-point shooting. You've got a lot of facilitators. You've got a lot of guys that can create. You don't have a lot of guys that can finish outside the 3-point line. So for me, that's an area. Those are the three things. The ability to effectively manage minutes, how you manage offense and defense, and then where the 3-point shooting comes from with this team.
Are you concerned at all with the Spurs with the Popovich factor, with him not being there anymore and the drop off in the coaching?
Yeah, I think you would be silly not to be. I will say, based on everything I've seen, that Pop is still very active in and around the facility. There's a great story about Carter Bryant, who was the second Spurs first round pick this year. He was at shoot around and Pop walked in and they went over and had a conversation together. And as Carter's telling the story, he said he was just blown away that Pop knew his name. That was kind of a like an oh my god moment for him. So I think Pop will definitely still have you'll have the benefit of his wisdom and his experience. The speed in which they went to Mitch Johnson and with guys like Malone out there and just long times, the Spurs tree is littered all over the league. So the fact that they took, I mean, God, it felt like 24 hours to then go and choose Mitch Johnson coming on from Pop just kind of lets you know that there's a great familiarity there. I think you've got Pop is a great resource. Duncan's been around. Ginobili's always around. Robinson's always around. So that environment, the culture, the team, yes, there's a concern, but I also think allowing these young guys to grow together, because De'Aaron and Wemby were very big proponents of keeping Mitch Johnson on as a head coach. I think that's exactly the scenario any team would love to have: 3 or 4 cornerstone players, 25 and younger, and a head coach that is really coming into his own.
And I think to me that's what I like about the Mavericks, the consistency with Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd has always wanted to play faster, but Luka was sort of at his own pace, and sort of there was that push and pull about what style of game do we want to play. But I think if Kidd in his natural element wants to play faster, and I think that and wants to, and obviously he was a defensive minded player, later could shoot better than he could early, but I like that consistency at the head coach with that voice. And of course, when these openings pop up, the Mavericks lock up Kidd because that consistency is important. So I think for me, if I'm looking at the Spurs, it's how do they transition? Does that continue to build from the coaching transition? And then Wemby is, to me, not a concern, but can he physically take the rigs and rolls of the season going against players that are much more physical than he is? And sometimes, Nick, he looks like a baby giraffe out there still on roller skates a little bit, but he just looks a little awkward, and sometimes he gets off balance very easy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. And that's also where I think the front office did a great job this offseason by getting Luke Cornett. I think that is a tremendously underrated move. I know in Spurs circles, we're very, very excited about Cornett. I've not seen it get the national coverage that it maybe should, but the high-low game with Wemby and Cornett, and just like you said, having Cornett as a body to bang with some of these other big centers, and to have to not have Wemby going against the Jokers and Seguins of the world. And then, oh, by the way, they also kept Bismack to also help to alleviate some of those concerns, because you're 100% right. The more and more the season drags on and you get into those 60, 70, 80th games of the year, the frame and the stature, and just all those things for Wemby do start to pop up. But that's also where I think the front office did a great job of going to get some help there.
Well, and health is not a big a concern with the Spurs as it is for the Mavericks, but I do think that they're going to have to make sure they load manage Wemby so that he doesn't wear down and he's there for the crucial times. But for me, the thing I like about the Spurs is they're young and they seem to like playing together.
Yeah, that chemistry is something that even in the preseason, when you watch it, man, the guys are so dialed in. They're so for one another. Very, very much a typical Spurs team, just in that respect. But what is atypical is, generally speaking, there's that huge division between veteran presence and kind of youthful athleticism. Normally, it's way skewed toward the veteran presence, and you've got a few guys that can be plugged in and used for some energy shots. That's almost the opposite now, right? They're trying to be very specific and intentional with the Harrison Barnes and Bismack and some of these guys that have a little more experience to help guide the younger team. But man, watching this team play and just jumping out of the gym, one of the really, really cool things that happened in the offseason was, and I believe it was a Wemby initiative. It's called the Spurs Jackals. Basically, what it is, it's a section of the stadium that is just for diehard, really, really get energy, almost like a college football kind of thought process. If you watch the game against Indiana, this is the last preseason game of the season. That place was absolutely rocking. And after the fact, everyone that was at the game was talking about how the Jackals just would not let the energy go down. So I'm looking forward to the home opener. Wemby, obviously from France, big football country. Soccer is what I mean by that.
Go
Um,
City.
and so I think just injecting some of those things, to your point about it's a young team, they seem to enjoy playing together. The city is just on fire with what the future for this team looks like.
I think as you look at it relative to the Western Conference, there's a lot of people, like I said, that have the Spurs and Mavs right next to each other. So it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out because I think that everyone clearly thinks OKC and Denver are the two top teams in the Western Conference. And I think in San Antonio, I mean, they don't have anything else really. It's the Spurs. Shout out to my friend Snoop down in San Antonio, Jason out there in San Antonio, but they don't really have anything else. So the Spurs sort of, you talked about how electric the place is. I mean, if I lived down there, I would probably go to Spurs games too because there's nothing really else to do.
You're exactly right. You live and die with the Spurs. And I mean, I think that is the great, it growing up, you always heard about the Saints were going to move to San Antonio, or this baseball team was going to move to San Antonio. And San Antonio always seemed to be in conversations for expansion from other leagues, and it never happened. But I think really that's a great thing for the city. I think having just that one thing that everyone just dials into and is such a part of, we always talk about being a part of something bigger than yourself. That's definitely what the Spurs feel like in San Antonio. It just feels like a family of a family. I can't tell you how many times walking around Dallas wearing a Spurs shirt or a Spurs hat that I get "Go Spurs Go" or 2-0. I can wear
There's
Cowboys,
enough of
and
that.
I'm just telling you, it happened. I can wear the Mavericks and the Cowboys gear. I see it all the time. No one's saying anything to anyone. I promise you, if I put a Spurs hat on and walk through Kroger or somewhere, I will get at least one person to give me the "Go Spurs Go" thing. So just to your point, man, it's a great camaraderie. It's a great feeling of togetherness. And it doesn't hurt that since the year 1999, the San Antonio Spurs have won more championships than all four professional teams in the DFW area.
See, look, you had to go there. You had to go there. Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you something. These Spurs fans, you know, d- they tanked the season to get Tim Duncan. There's no question about that. So they manufactured their championships by tanking. So they said, let us lose a lot so that we can hit the lottery at the right time. And then here we go. Deja vu. Wemby happens, right? Well, we got our own Wemby. It's Cooper Flag. And I'm just going to tell you this: if you look at the projections of Cooper Flag, Wemby, it's not that far off from each other. And here's what I'll say about the Spurs. Listen, I had to listen to that junk for a long time, and I'm just going to tell you, I think the Spurs will finish behind the Mavericks. Maybe we need to put a wager on this for the year. Like I don't want to do anything corny like you have to wear a Mavericks shirt, because that's not a diss. That's not a diss. I think maybe you should have to grow a real like Tom Selleck mustache and only have a mustache, or shave your head or something.
I'm willing to do the mustache or even the shave head. I don't think we can do that going back the other direction. So what I would need
Hey,
in
what are you
return,
trying to say here? I mean, I have to shave my head every week.
I don't know that it's something that's going to trouble you that much, though. Here's what I would want coming back, though. I would want, and for those of you that don't know, Jeff is very, very big on Mavericks, Cowboys, Rangers. So what I want is for one season, if the Spurs finish, we're talking about better record, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Better record at the end of the year, that we put up a large 2014 NBA champion poster of the San Antonio Spurs that you have to look at for a season.
Why are you always living in the past?
Hey, man, I'm just...
2014, no one cares who won the championship in 2014. No,
I care.
You're the only one that cares. 2014 is 12 years ago by the time this NBA season's over.
We can go tattoo.
I don't have any tattoos, and I'm not willing to do that. Maybe tattoo hair on my head. Maybe that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that. Look, you want to take it to the next level.
Uh-huh.
I'm just trying to do something fun here. You and a mustache is fun. Me with a tattoo, that's permanent.
All right. Well, then let's modern this up. The 25-26 this season, the team portrait goes in your office for one season.
How long do you have to keep the mustache? One season?
God, that's too long.
Okay. I mean, listen.
All right, fine. How about a month?
Okay, a month.
Let's do a month.
All right. If the Spurs finish ahead of the Mavericks in the standings,
yep,
and I got to put the team picture in my office with my other stuff.
Yep.
But you have to rock only a mustache, no stubble.
No, nothing else.
Got to be clean shaven for an entire month.
All right. It's a deal.
Shake it.
Yeah.
All right. That's a deal.
All right.
All right. There you have it. That's our NBA preview. Now, wait a minute. Hold on a second. We didn't talk about the Rockets. Oh, well. We don't need to talk about the Rockets.
Yeah, they're washed. Look, they made that Kevin Durant trade.
I said we don't need to talk about the Rockets.
I know we don't need to talk about it, but I want to talk about it just to say why we don't need to talk about it. Really, though, I think Kevin Durant is a really, really bad pickup for them. We got a lot of people in the office that like the Rockets. I talked to a lot of people that are big on Houston, and I really feel like that Durant trade was not good for them. Well,
all the pundits out there have them as a top 4 or 5 team this year, so they're really buying. And listen, one thing that the Rockets have done is they increased their size, and I think maybe that was because what the Mavericks are doing. But I'll tell you this: you never know what you're going to get with KD's teams. But history says without putting genuine superstars around him, he's not going to get you there on his own. So that's enough Rockets talk. We don't really need to do that. But look, we appreciate you guys joining us on this episode. This is episode 4 of the Dead Jeff Show. And like I said before, please like and subscribe wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. Please like and subscribe and tell us what you think of the show. Be nice. Now, if you remember what was killing Jeff last week, it's that we can disagree and have different opinions, but let's be nice. Let's not inject it with hate. But we really appreciate you listening to us today. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you for listening. Peace out.